Welcome to Immigration Review, your weekly source for immigration case law updates and insights. I'm your host, Kevin A. Gregg, back again to review the week's presidential immigration cases, rummaging through the decisions so you don't have to. This podcast is sponsored by Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, also known as KKTP, a law firm where I'm also a partner. Whether you are facing an immigration obstacle, a serious injury, or a legal issue in your business, KKTP will aggressively protect your best interests. This podcast is also sponsored by DocketWise, an all-in-one immigration forms and case management solution trusted by thousands of immigration lawyers across the U.S. I really like DocketWise. It makes immigration applications easy by allowing the clients to provide information through simple online questionnaires that are shareable by text or email and available in multiple languages. Not only that, DocketWise provides a comprehensive group of case management features, including invoicing and calendaring, secure messaging, task management, and a lot more. You can learn all about DocketWise and receive a 10% discount on your subscription by heading to docketwise.com/immigration-review, so they know we sent you. And as always, this show does not constitute legal advice and has no bias other than to keep you up to date and to enable you, my dear colleagues, to excel in court. So, without further ado, let's start the review. Special episode alert! And this special episode is extra special because not only did it occur at the AILA National Conference, but it was a double interview. An interview of two people at once. I am branching out, people. During the AILA National Conference in June in Orlando, I had the honor of interviewing both the immediate past AILA President Jeremy McKinney and the just installed current AILA President Farshad Aouji. We talked about them, AILA, and everyone's favorite, immigration politics. A bit about them though first, a paraphrase from their websites. Jeremy McKinney practices in all areas of immigration law and is a North Carolina board-certified immigration law specialist. He has taught immigration law at Elon University School of Law and served on the North Carolina State Bar's Specialization Committee. He's litigated all over the country. Indeed, his federal court wins have been discussed on this podcast. As you'll hear, he was also a judge advocate in the North Carolina Army National Guard and, in 2003, was deployed abroad in connection with the Iraq War. Great dude, too. Farshad Aouji is the San Francisco partner of the top-rated WR immigration law firm. The firm boasts 150 professionals, including 40 lawyers and offices in Boston, LA, New York, San Francisco, Oakland, and Shanghai. Farshad specializes in a broad range of immigration areas relating to corporate global mobility, including business and investment visas. He also handles the full range of global immigration matters. He's also got a heck of a story, and he's a very nice guy. So enjoy our discussion in this, the podcast's first ever and potentially annual AILA episode. Gentlemen, if you'll believe it, this is actually the first time I've done one of these interviews in person. The podcast started during COVID, and all 15 or so interviews that I've done have been over Zoom. Nor have I done this with two mics or two people before, so bear with me.
It's like we're at the Grand Ole Opry. Hey.
Hey. That's our Appalachia president talking right there. All right, we're off to a great start, guys. And actually, I've been told by your fellow AILA national leadership that I need to properly address each of you formally. Farshad, I understand that you go by Lord Farshad, and that Jeremy, you're known as King J. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Lord Farshad, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, so I will address each of you formally. You can thank your fellow AILA leadership for giving me that nugget. Are either of you actually royalty?
That would be no.
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 Okay. So Farshad, you've naturalized, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
So you actually had to swear that you're not royalty. You have no allegiances.
Yes, that's true.
So you're the only one I actually believe on that question. Jeremy's never actually had to say under the penalty of perjury. The important questions are out of the way. All right, King J. Let's start off with the basics. To quote Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is your daddy and what does he do? Restated, tell me a bit about yourself and your journey that brought you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I am from a small town in South Central Virginia called South Boston.
Wow.
Not with this accent to be confused with being a Southie in Massachusetts. It's a town that was based in two things, tobacco and textiles. Needless to say, the town has shrunk in population and gone from being a city to a town. That's where I come from. It is about an hour north of Durham, North Carolina. Grew up there. My dad was a factory worker. My mom was an x-ray tech. And I dreamt of I was very interested in politics as a teenager, but I was also very interested in music and film. And so that split, I had to navigate that split during my education, ultimately deciding to go to law school. I emerged from law school finding a talent in criminal defense, but not wanting to be a criminal defense attorney.
Why not?
I didn't like the slog of trial work. It wasn't necessarily the clients, although I will say during the latter part of my criminal defense career, it was starting to get a little ugly. You know, when you start getting assigned to attempted murder and rape, it was getting real.
Yeah.
All right. But that wasn't it. It was really just the slog of courtroom work day after day in not ideal circumstances, which was Guilford County District Court. Point is, I didn't even want to do the work. I wasn't super interested in it, but everything in law school was pointing in that direction. I got the highest grade in the class in criminal law. I won competitions in litigation. Mm-hmm. And so it was like everything was pointing me in that direction. So when I started my own firm a few months after I graduated.
That's insane. I mean, that's not insane. Everybody does it. It just is insane to me. I have so much respect for people who do it because it gives me a heart attack just thinking about it.
You know, I've got to give props to my law school, which is called Campbell University in North Carolina, because they're one of the few law schools, at least in the 90s, that would prepare its law students on the business side of being a lawyer and prepared us to do this. They also had an arrangement with a bank that if you went through their program, graduated from Campbell, and had gone through law office management, this bank guaranteed you a line of credit.
That's incredible.
I used that line of credit to start my law firm.
And you also have a military connection, right?
Correct. Well, first of all, a family connection. My father was literally in Vietnam when I was born. And both of my grandparents served in World War II. One won the Bronze Star at the Battle of the Bulge on the European front. And my other grandfather was on the Pacific front.
But you personally, you were or are still JAG?
That's past tense.
That's past tense.
Yes. So after I graduated from law school and had started my own practice, I was trying to think ahead about not just serving, but also providing another source of like a pension. If you do your 20 years in the military, you will get a pension based on whatever rank you are at the time that you retire. For a JAG officer, you go in as a first lieutenant, quickly become a captain. And if you do your 20 and you basically have a pulse, you're going to be at least a lieutenant colonel.
Okay, lieutenant colonel.
And you will retire at that. So I viewed that as a great source of income and the ability to serve. What I didn't predict was first there was Bosnia, then the problems with Osama bin Laden started, and then the Bush administration's turn to Iraq.
Right.
So I ended up getting deployed. We had to induce my daughter's birth so that I would be there. She was born on a Monday, and on Saturday I reported to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I was sent away in support of the Iraq War. I was in Jordan. I was still a lawyer, but I was in a tent, brushing my teeth with bottled water and living in the desert.
At the beginning of the Iraq War.
Yes. during the actual war,
Right.
which ironically for a support unit was extremely safe. But the scary stuff, the roadside bombs and things like that, that was all after I was long gone.
Mm. I didn't know that story. I just knew that you had done some JAG. I didn't know the extent of it. It's important for you to talk about. I know you do, I'm sure, not just on this podcast, but it seems that the anti-immigration community likes to wrap themselves in the flag and patriotism as a reason to be anti-immigrant, which, putting aside all that irony, whatever, but it's important to have someone like you in our community and leadership in AILA who actually can play that exact game right back at them. It's not that you need to do that to advocate for immigrants or to be a patriot, but it's good to know that, hey, us immigration attorneys are just as patriotic and we do that stuff too.
100%. And I would never want to measure one person's patriotism against another because that's the game I feel like that they play.
Right.
But I think what I see every day in my practice, and honestly, we'll talk about it later, what we saw here at this annual conference, is that immigrants, we are born like native born Americans like myself. We were born here, right? Citizenship is just given to us. You don't seek it. Immigrants seek it.
Right.
Immigrants desire it. And perhaps if one were weighing on the patriotism scale, they might have a bit of an advantage there.
So before I get to Farshad, because I very much want to get to Farshad, where does the immigration come in then in that story that you just told? Why immigration law?
All right. So I started my own law firm. I started doing criminal defense, and I needed something to complement that practice. I mean, I was 25 years old, so I didn't even have enough work to keep me busy all day. A friend had talked to me. I had gone to her to talk about employment discrimination and on the plaintiff side. And she had a book on the bookshelf about immigration law. And I was like, what's that about? Again, monolingual, did not take immigration law in law school.
Charming Southern accent.
She told me about immigration law, and she immediately mentioned this group called AILA that you would have to join if you were going to do this practice. And she gave me the book. And that was months earlier when I was thinking about this law firm. So I started the law firm. I looked into the census. Then it was the 1990 census. There were 45,000 people in the Triad area of North Carolina, which is my area, that self-identified as Latino or Hispanic. We had at that time 2 immigration attorneys. 2. I was like, this is an incredibly underserved population. Maybe that is where I should explore. And so that's what I did. The Life Act, which was passed during a lame duck Congress after the election of 2000, before Clinton left office, extended 245I for a few months. That created a tsunami of work. So ever since then, no criminal defense practice, no other practice, solely immigration since late 2000.
But you and I are both very much in the crimmigration world. You haven't left the criminals behind.
No.
Just you've put an immigration tinge to them.
Correct.
Because we find it very fun.
Exactly.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. That's a heck of a story. Only to be topped, as I understand, by Farshad's. If what I'm hearing from your presentation yesterday at the AILA conference is any indication. If you could be so kind, Farshad, what is a bit of your story and how did it bring you here to where you are today?
Well, I was born in Iran and I first came to America when I was 8 or 9. And I immediately fell in love with America. In fact, when we were going back with my parents, I had asked them to leave me here. Could you imagine that? Yeah, as a child. And
how old were you?
I was about 8 or 9 at that time. But of course, they didn't. And we went back to Iran and it was a revolution. So I was in Iran during the revolution.
I would not, to be honest with you, I was doing the math in my head. I was not going to say that you were old enough to have been in Iran during the revolution at 8 or 9. I would not. That is a compliment in historical terms.
It's kind of you.
So you were in the revolution
Yes.
as an 8 or 9-year-old. What was that like?
It was scary. It was scary because my dad was working for the government at that time.
Yes, that is scary.
And we were afraid. We were scared of our lives. It was horrifying. It was hard to go through that as a country, but we had additional layer of concern to our lives.
So your family is visiting the United States and then returns, I guess, in what, 78, 79?
Exactly, 78.
Your parents must have seen that something was going on with the Shah, that things weren't great. What goes through your parents' head to say, you know what, it's still going to be safe enough for us to return? What, they didn't think it was going to happen? It wasn't so bad, just regular turmoil? Or how does that decision go?
No, actually, in fact, my parents, they had enough information that this is going to go down. But my father, being patriotic, he said that I have served this country and I have to be back. I haven't done anything wrong. So I want to go back to my country and be present there. So that was the very informed decision on his part.
Your father has more guts than I will ever have. That I can promise you. How do they then get out? How do you then get to America the second time?
Well, after the revolution, my father was arrested and he was actually imprisoned twice. And they could not get out of Iran for a long time, even after me and my brother had left. It was about 1986 that I could finally leave Iran. I had a special permission. You would pay a fee to be able to get out one time.
So you lived through the hostage crisis and the early years of the Ayatollah, and I guess the beginning of most of the Iran-Iraq war as a boy, and then as a young teenager. That is your teenage life.
Yes.
With your father in prison.
Not the whole time, but yes.
That is remarkable. And so how do you end up coming to the United States permanently?
Well, the dream and the path was that I would leave Iran and I would go to a third country to apply for a visa, like any other Iranian story.
Of course.
But we all know not all of them end up the way they should be and was hoped. So mine, unlike any other, I left Iran and I went to Turkey. And I applied for a U.S. visa and I was rejected multiple times. We were told that, you have to not reapply again. You have to wait for 6 months, stories that we all know. So we did, and we waited and applied again, we denied again. At that time, I had almost given up. I said, okay, maybe I should continue to do what is necessary for me, which is learning the Turkish language, and going through finishing my high school so that I could continue my education. And that's what I did. I went to learn Turkish and I had to register for high school, but it was a very hard journey, I would say.
I would say so too, just listening to it.
I believe I traveled 15 times to Northern Cyprus to be able to go to the embassy, Turkish embassy, because you couldn't apply for the student visa for high school within Turkey. It was a journey that opened my eyes as a 16, 17-year-old.
It goes back to what Jeremy was talking about. I mean, somebody who's, and we're not even really at you or getting to America yet, but like somebody who has gone to that path, gone all that way to try to get to America, has a different appreciation and a different belief about America. I know that at your investiture, for lack of a better word, yesterday, you brought an American flag onto the stage because obviously all these years later, that's how important it is to you. And so you come here on a student visa?
To the U.S.?
To the United States?
No.
How'd you get here? You're literally here.
Yes. So, again, I have to tie the story together.
Okay.
It's not just
I'm not just
gonna, So, basically I finished high school, then applied for visa again, the U.S. visa, and I couldn't get it. And I said, okay. I actually attempted to go to Canada to seek asylum. And that was a whole different story. I can write a book about that. And then that wasn't successful. So I went back to Turkey and said, okay, I think this is it. I'm going to be living here.
I'm a Turk.
I'm a Turk. So I then had to study for the university exam, and I took the exam, and I was accepted to one of the top law schools in Turkey. And that there in law school is where I met my wife, finished law school in Turkey, and then started to work at the UNHCR I started interning there as a interpreter. And then when the position opened, I applied for a legal officer. So I started interviewing asylum seekers there. And not that any special treatment, but miraculously, when I applied for a U.S. visa next time, I was granted the visa. And now maybe at that time I thought that, because I'm in this community. But now thinking of it, no. I mean, I met basically, I was married, I had a job, secure job. I mean, everything that we tell our clients right now. Now I understand that,
right.
No, I mean, it wasn't because of that where I was, like me being in that community. It was more about like what my case was about.
But also the officers need to be assured of who you are. I mean, the fact that you work for UNHCR, mm-hmm. it gives some comfort to a visa officer adjudicating your case, saying, all right, somebody thinks that he's not a terrible person. Maybe I don't have to go so in depth into this as well, right? I mean, then there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just part of, like you said, what we tell our clients, paint the whole picture of who you are to show that you're somebody that America wants.
But for the immigrant intent, which I had at all time.
Are you sure you want to keep that in?
Absolutely.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am.
We can edit it out.
No,
I
am,
we're
because
keep
the story
AILA
continues.
president had the immigrant intent when he came in on, is that a student visa or no?
No, as a tourist visa.
Quite frankly, even worse, on a tourist visa. You heard it here, folks.
Yes, I had an immigrant intent. I was not asked at the interview, are you going to stay and not come back? I was not asked that question. I was basically said, where are you going? I'm going to visit. Boom.
Immigrant intent is an ambiguous phrase, and who can really know what was in your brain all those years ago, which is what we're going to do.
You don't need to soften this. I have a closure for this.
Yeah, all right, let's close it up.
He can land the plane.
Yeah, yes, I'm going to land the plane. So, okay, yeah, I have a story to tell.
Let's see why the immigrant intent doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I came to the U.S. with that visitor visa, and basically came here to Orlando, Florida. And this is where I first came, and I joined my uncle that he used to live here. I mean, actually, he's living here still. He lived here, and I stayed here. And my determination at that time was, yes, this is it. I came here and I will not leave. I will find a way to stay. And then after that, I started to, obviously my passion was to continue to practice law. I didn't wanted to do anything else. So I started traveling. I started from Naples, going to Miami, and then throughout the coast, went up all the way to Connecticut. And I visited all the schools, talked to everybody that I know. And it took about 5-6 months. In fact, I came alone, and I had told my wife to get a visa, and then she arranged everything, packed the house, and she was about coming here. And I returned back to Orlando, and I was at my uncle's house that one night I just woke up and said, I'm going to go back. And everybody was shocked. You know, people tell me, don't do it. You can't come back. This is like, you got to use this chance. Don't blow it, etc., etc. But somehow I was determined that I will come back. But I thought that this is not the time to stay. Somehow it was a gut feeling for me. And it was completely irrational because my wife actually had gone and bought a ticket to come, and I had told the agency, don't sell it because I'm coming back.
Wow.
So out of nowhere, next day, I was on a flight to go back, and everybody was shocked, including my wife that thought that I had lost it. I mean, what happened? And I tell you, she was not much for coming here. because she had a secure job. She was working for a Confederation Union. She was their legal advisor. Very good job. And I had actually, in fact, tricked her to come. She's Turkish. She had a good life. Turkey was very stable at that time. Life was good. And then she did not want to come. And I had tricked her. So yeah, let's go to the US. We get master. Education was her weak point. And I tricked her to that. So yes, I returned. I went back.
So to sum that part up, sure, he wanted to stay permanently, but all of his activities during that period of time were completely within the context of a B2, and he timely departed.
I agree.
So just to be clear, that's how you land the plane, because he's being honest with you about his dream. His desire was to follow the American dream and to become an American and to live here. But when he didn't see that path as a B2 in the U.S., he left.
I agree, counsel. How do you end up back then?
So story quickly unfolds, like much, much quicker than you even could imagine. I returned. I slept the night at my house. Next day, literally the day after my arrival, I went to my old house to check the mail. And what do I find there? Diversity lottery visa.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Which, to all the people who don't know, it's literally winning the lottery, except instead of winning money, you win the chance to come to America permanently.
And I tell you, the significance of this, you and I know both the timing. If I had been wishy-washy about it,
if you hadn't done the right thing under immigration law, you could have you could have prevented yourself from ever being here permanently.
And that has been my pole. I have always said that, do the right thing. If your intentions are good, do the right thing, it will come to you.
Well, just to be clear, it seems like your intentions were bad. They just changed.
No.
Bad.
No.
That's a hard word.
Okay.
That's a hard word.
No.
I want to pivot now to AILA, the reason that really we're here, at least that we're here in the conference. I want to turn it to Jeremy. If you could just go over the basics of AILA, why it exists, what its purpose is, and then maybe the difference between AILA today and AILA of past years. It's been around for a long time.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm the 76th president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Farshad is the 77th. The organization was founded in New York in the 1940s by a small group of mostly Jewish attorneys, and it was a handful of individuals that met in New York, and then they would meet in New York and Philly, and then it continued to grow and grow and grow. Just this past year, we added almost 888, almost 900 new members during the last AILA year, and we're almost at 17,000.
It's incredible.
We have 39 chapters. That's not limited to the United States. We have, of course, a lot of chapters within the United States, but we also have a Canada chapter. We have a Latin American chapter. We have a Rome District chapter, which covers Europe. We have a Asia Pacific chapter. So we are now a global organization of almost 17,000 attorneys. So it's dramatically different from its humble beginnings in the 1940s.
What is the purpose of AILA? I mean, we're a group of immigration lawyers, yes, but we're not just a social club. Why do we exist?
Well, we exist for two primary reasons. And let me say that anyone that's interested, we have a mission statement at AILA.org, and I'm not going to just read that, because what it means to me is really two things. Number one, to advance immigration law and policy. So our mission is to develop immigration law in a way that is pro-immigration, that really promotes orderly, systematic, and legal immigration. The second thing is to educate and train our members to make them better immigration lawyers.
Why is encouraging legal immigration to the United States important?
We are the American Immigration Lawyers Association. So, for example, a group of tax attorneys would not be in favor of abolishing the tax code. What we are for is fair and safe and legal, lawful immigration. We know that not everyone will qualify, but on the other hand, the rules in the current system, the way it is set up, is so draconian that it really creates a bottleneck situation where we just don't have the immigration levels at a place where they need to be to meet our economy and to be consistent with our values. What are we for? We are for freedom, this country. We're for freedom. I believe we have a moral code of believing in safety and freedom, and we need an immigration system that is consistent with our values. And that's what we fight for here at AILA.
You were the 1 year elected president. AILA has elected presidents for 1 year. Your term literally ended yesterday. What are the duties of the AILA president, and how is it different from, say, the AILA executive director?
Okay, so the American Immigration Lawyers Association is governed by a board of governors, which is made up of different components. You have an executive committee that is 6 elected officers and 1 ex officio. I'm now ex officio.
You're now an ex officio.
Correct.
That sounds cooler than president, to be honest with you.
And it sounds cooler, but it's not. My vote doesn't even count. We have elected directors. We have chapter chairs that are on the board. Every past president that maintains activity and participation can be on the board of governors. And so that volunteer leadership is what determines the direction of the association. So, for example, if the board of governors voted that the American Immigration Lawyers was going to be opposed to the DREAM Act, AILA would be opposed to the DREAM Act because the board of governors determines the policy of the organization. The professional leadership, they act. They are the hands that fulfill the direction that the board of governors seeks. Now, within the executive committee, the president is at the top of that group. And the president appoints all of the volunteers. So, for example, Farshad just finished appointing over 700 AILA members to over 50 committees.
I was not appointed.
You ask?
I did not ask.
There you go.
Don't get appointment.
We would love, whenever you want, to talk about that because it's important.
So, thank you for that rundown. It's like people like Ben Johnson and Gregory Chen, they are the professional leadership. They are actually employees of AILA. And people like you and Farshad are elected members who are temporary. That temporary term spans a couple of years, but in general, that's how it's working. What were some of your goals, direction that you wanted to put into place during the term that just ended? It's only 1 year. And how do you think it did?
Okay, so let me push back on this 1 year thing. Okay?
Please.
Because it's not really 1 year. And if that's your goal, you're going to fail. The executive committee is a 7-year commitment. So for me, I was elected AILA secretary in 2017. That year, a few months into my first year, I sat down with Ben Johnson, the executive director, and at the time, Bob Deasy, who was his deputy. They sat down with me and they asked that question in 2017. What are your goals? And what I told them at the time was there was a dearth of removal defense practitioners on the executive committee and really the board of governors generally. So I said my primary goal is to elevate the practice of removal defense in the educational programming and most importantly in the governance. The governance was very business minded because I can tell you, you would sit through board meeting after board meeting, and if a topic came up that involved H-1Bs and labor certifications, you would have people a dozen deep standing at the microphone.
Yeah.
And removal defense issues never came up. which was crazy because all the public and the politicians are thinking about is our enforcement apparatus.
Right.
But it wasn't present in the boardroom. I wanted to bring that into the boardroom. During that time, we succeeded in that. We created a removal defense section for our members. We had a business section. We did not have a removal defense section. We created that. If you look at our executive committee right now, you've got myself, removal defense practitioner. Farshad had previously did removal defense. Kelly Stump, removal defense. Jackie Watson, removal defense. Jeff Joseph got his start in removal defense just like Farshad.
Rekha Sharma Crawford, who just got elected, also.
100%.
It's hard for me to imagine an AILA, and I'm a bit new to it, that was so business-minded when now it does seem like removal defense, asylum, the nonprofit world is so well represented.
Right. When I joined the executive committee in 2017, it was natural that every year I would provide the ICE and the EOIR update to the membership during the annual conference. This year, we were pulling our hair trying to figure out who was going to say what because this group has so much expertise and deep experience in removal defense that it actually became tricky as to who was going to say what. So that was my first goal. And then my other goal was to change the climate within the membership itself. We really live in toxic times. I was elected Donald Trump year 1.
I remember him.
Yeah, you remember him.
I do, yeah.
So again, we can disagree. And by the way, on the executive committee, we often disagree. But we do it from a foundation of trust and frankly love and support for each other. And we really wanted to do something about the toxicity that existed in some corners of the AILA membership. And so during my first 2 years on the executive committee, I led a group of board members and we wrote a civility code. And ultimately we got that passed through the Board of Governors. And to me, it's been a game changer for the temperature on our listservs, just a way to bring down the temperature in a way that we can have very spirited disagreements about different policy issues, but it doesn't turn toxic. But if it does, the civility code is there to address it.
It seems like the immigration attorneys are some of the more passionate folks, and that can be that's certainly a blessing. It can also be a negative thing as well. It can lead passions running high when you're having discussions that bleed into civility. But I didn't even really know an AILA where it was uncivil. So clearly you guys have done a great job. So Farshad, I want to turn to you on this now. You're the incoming president. Jeremy has just politely corrected me that this is not a 1-year goal. It's more of a 7 years. So really you're at the end. But what are your goals for your term? What policies do you intend or hope to put forward? And what do you think are the most pressing issues of concern that you need to address?
Yes, as Jeremy said, I was going to correct and say this is not a 1-year term.
Well, I have been corrected.
Yes, I wanted to re-emphasize that again.
Re-correct. My correction, is my podcast, all right? You guys might be the presidents.
But we are your guests.
But you are my guests.
So we set the tone.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'm in over my head.
Meet Lord Farshad.
Yes, this is something that starts years ago. And I do remember the first conversation, just like Jeremy, what he had in my early years of XCOM. And my vision and my goal was to take the organization and membership to the next level by helping the members in terms of how they can be more powerful in their practice. And there are many ways. You have to educate them, you have to bring them the technology and many other things. So they can be more powerful to be able to serve more clients and have a happier, better life. That was my goal. Within that, of course, there were many, many items that I thought, because I was a solo practitioner for a long time, and I knew the pain that practitioners must go through every single day. We not only have to represent our clients, but we have to also pay the bills, pay the payroll, the banking, the insurance, the rent, everything that involves the practice of law, running your practice, the business side of it. That's what I wanted to focus on.
You can't be good at representing anyone if you're not taking care of the bottom line of your practice, of your family. That's what I mean. At the end of the day, this is our job, and that's the point of it.
Exactly. And I've met countless of people that are brilliant attorneys, but they're not in the same level they should be in their business life. And by default, I can say that we lawyers, we are not good business people. We do not get education to how to run a business in law school.
Right.
So that's what I wanted to highlight during my tenure. And now that we have the technology to rely on, I think we have a great opportunity in front of us to be better and serve more.
I saw your presentation yesterday. One of the first things that you're doing, which of course has been in the works for years under Jeremy's leadership as well, but you got to say it, is that the AILA website has been revamped. More user-friendly, more technologically savvy. So that's right in line with what you're saying? Absolutely.
And that is a collective effort. And I'm truly honored and blessed to be with such a great team that it's no longer my goal. I verbalized that goal 5 years ago, but that was not my effort to bring it home. That was a collective effort from everyone before me and after me to bring it where it is. And that's the same for every other member of the executive committee. We own each other's goal and we help to go toward that.
I could talk to you guys all day. We haven't even pivoted to the political stuff, and I want to. Also, I have a panel to present on in about 2 hours. But before I pivot to the political stuff, and I want to go to Farshad and then Jeremy, you can jump in too. How do you guys do it? I mean, this is a volunteer elected position. You are both practicing attorneys. Jeremy, you conveyed to me before we started recording that you were actually one attorney short in your practice for most of your term. How do you juggle this commitment with your actual job? How do you do it, Farshad?
Well, first of all, I've been involved with many things throughout my life. Even I think Jeremy mentioned yesterday during the plenary that while I was a chapter chair in Northern California, I had a restaurant to run as well.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So one of the things that it could be a little bit cliche, but something that I have always said to people that complain about time, I said, there is only one thing that is absolute equal for everyone in life, and that is time. We all have 24 hours. A president of a country has also the same. So if a president of a country runs a country in 24 hours, who am I to complain about what I do? That's my attitude and has been my attitude since then. So with that, I do heavily rely on my support group. And that's what I talk to them. And that is what I thank them every day to allow me to be here where I am. And that support group is comprised of my own team at work and AILA that gives me the platform, gives me the ammunition and the space so that I can do what I want to do.
Support groups are important, and being very intentional with your time are important. To kind of push back a little bit and to do so to Jeremy, because then I don't actually have to push back against you. To push back on what Farshad just said, we only have so much time in the day. I know Jeremy a bit better than Farshad. I know you have a family. I know you have a family as well. Something's got to give if you're giving up hours of your day to AILA National. How do you make these extracurricular things work and give that time without giving up core things like your family relationships, your business practice, and the like? How do you then use those same 24 hours in an effective way?
You create a business that can function without you. That is the key. Now, could McKinney Immigration Law completely function without me? Of course not. It needs my leadership. It needs my guidance. But what it doesn't need is my physical presence in that office day to day. You create an infrastructure so that you can have a successful practice without having to be there every day. So for me, more than 2 decades ago, I hired a non-attorney business manager. That was one of the best decisions that I ever made. It is a person that was brought in that majored in business management, not law, not immigration, to come in and run the business. So when it comes to everything from accounting to marketing, I have a person that is her primary responsibility, not mine. My job is to provide my vision and to approve things or reject them.
And to know the law.
On the legal side of things, of course, not just to know the law, but I actually became a specialist in 2002 in immigration law. So it's important not just know immigration law, but to know it inside and out. So creating that, right now, McKinney Immigration Law has 3 attorneys, but we have 18 support staff. So we create a network so that every client has a case manager. So a client doesn't immediately contact me with any questions or concerns. They get rapid and timely feedback from their case manager. And if it is something the case manager can't ask, then I will get a message through our internal system asking me the question at any time of day, and I will answer it. And that's how we've been able to run things. Now, with AILA, during my year, 1 day a week, 1 work day a week, AILA comes first. I call it AILA Monday. AILA Monday.
It sounds terrifying.
On Mondays of every week, I do not do client appointments, and AILA comes first. Every other day, my law firm comes first, and AILA comes second. But there's never a day when they're not 1 and 2. Right? Now, with family, and I say this to up-and-coming leaders within AILA all the time, if it is important to you, and again, people and family dynamics differ from person to person. My family is the center of my life. I incorporate my family into the AILA experience. I showed the new crop of chapter chairs last year when we were in Hawaii. I put up at the beginning of their meeting a photo of my family with my 2 little kids when we were in Hawaii on the Big Island for AILA. I travel with them everywhere. For the Rome District Conference last year, I took my daughter. To Tokyo, to the Asia Pacific Conference, I took my son. By keeping your family involved in the AILA experience, you don't have to choose.
We'll be right back after a short break. This podcast is sponsored by Journey Business Plans. Journey is the leading business immigration plan writing company in the United States. 10 years. And they know immigration. Heck, they started as an E2 company themselves. Journey prides itself on its responsiveness and overall customer service, preparing business plans for E2, EB2 NIW, L1, EB5, and much more. If you don't yet know about Journey and don't want to listen to just me, ask your colleagues. Or even better, try them out. Visit www.journey.com and use promo code REVJOURNEY30 for a 30% discount on your first business plan. That's REVJOORNEY 30. Or click on the link in the show notes. This podcast is also sponsored by Capital Good Fund. Millions of families seeking to improve their immigration status face financial barriers due to the high cost of legal services. Nonprofit Capital Good Fund is working to make these resources available to all, especially those who would otherwise not qualify for traditional loans. Certified CDFI Capital Good Fund is partnering with attorneys to provide the financial services families need. They offer affordable financing with no closing fee or down payments for those working with attorneys to move their case forward and get attorneys out of the accounts receivable business. To learn more about the program, email immigration@goodfund.us or call 866-584-3651 and tell them who sent you. Thank you for that, gentlemen. I do want to pivot to the political, because immigration is inherently political. Every panel I go to seems to be advocating that immigration attorneys need to add advocacy into their immigration practice, because this is not just a legal fight. This is also a policy fight. This is an American values fight. And I've got a lot of questions on this, but I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. But I mean, AILA itself has a National Day of Action. AILA is nonpartisan, but it does seem that the Democrats are maybe more receptive to what we're selling at the moment. Farshad, what are we selling at the moment in the National Day of Action?
Well, we are talking about the just and fair immigration system. I mean, we all know that immigration has become a political football, and it's been used as a tool for divisiveness to bring fear to the communities. And the truth that it is not. There are simple ways that people can immigrate to the U.S. and also America can stay on path the way that it has been for years and years. Now, on the day of action, we try to meet with the representatives, and we try to voice our concerns and encourage them to do the right thing. We all know that our country and our Congress has become very polarized, and we have gone to very different spectrums on immigration.
We have a decision in U.S. versus Texas.
God damn it. What is it?
Standing.
How many pages is it?
Kagan wrote it. We got to get a press release out. I'm sorry.
You got to... While recording this podcast, in the middle of it, at 10:05 a.m. in Orlando, the Supreme Court published U.S. v. Texas with Justice Kagan in the majority, finding that the states lack standing, literally as Jeremy Farshad and I skimmed the decision. You're hearing it in real time. 3 immigration nerds trying to do an interview and also read precedential decision that did not, it would seem, blow up our immigration system. So that's for celebration.
Yeah.
National Day. This is better than any National Day of Action we could have. Although it does seem like we're always playing defense, right?
It does.
We're just thankful that they didn't blow everything up.
That's correct. Correction. Kavanaugh wrote the opinion, not Kagan. I saw a K and I thought it was Kagan.
So Farshad, some of the goals then, as I understand it, with some of the reading I've been doing with AILA, is we're focused really heavily on DACA right now, getting a permanent solution. The H-1B backlog issues and other issues surrounding
farm workers,
and then the farm workers as well. That's what we're focusing on the Hill at the moment.
Yes.
But, the National Day Action is great, and playing hardcore politics is great and necessary. But really, politics is about the national mood, to me. You can't do anything if representatives don't think that it helps them politically, or it's very hard to do things to go against their interests. One of our favorite talking points is to remind immigration opponents that amnesty and the other favorable immigration laws from the 80s were, of course, passed by and often advocated for Republican President Ronald Reagan, and that, if I'm not incorrect, he used his final speech as president to advocate for immigrants. But these are non-starters today in much of the Republican Party and in certain Democratic circles as well, if only for purely political reasons. They don't think it's a winning issue, and they might be right politically. Jeremy, what the heck happened, and how the heck did we get here with immigration views nationally?
My own view on this, I need to first just paint the picture of how it was when I started practicing. And the majority of my immigration practice, I live in North Carolina, which is a purple state. Our chapter, AILA Carolinas, is North and South Carolina. South Carolina is a red state, but one of its 2 senators was and is Lindsey Graham. The pre-Trump Lindsey Graham was very pro-immigration.
He was part of a gang, if I recall.
The Senate loves gangs, right?
The Senate loves gangs.
And Lindsey Graham has been a member of every gang in the Senate that was addressing immigration reform in a meaningful way. The Republican Party is the party of John McCain. The Republican Party is the party of Jeff Flake. Both senators from Arizona, both people that we could work with.
But it's not today.
It is not today.
And in part, it's not today because they got pushed out. Well, John McCain, of course, passed away. But the Republican Party has pivoted, and it seems like immigration was one of those pivot points that has enabled the Republican Party to be what it is today. I mean, not to cut you off, like how? How did it happen? How did it shift?
Well, I think it started with, you always had in its DNA, starting with the Democrat Party and the Dixiecrats, you've always had a strain of restrictionist and one might say racist elements in both political parties. It's not just limited to the Republicans. The question is, when does it dominate? The Democrats, arguably, from the Civil War through the end of Jim Crow, the racists were in the Democratic Party.
Right.
More Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act than voted against it back in the 60s. So let's just be clear about that. But what happened is Nixon devised a strategy, his Southern strategy, to bring those voters over to the Republican Party. And then that continued under Reagan. And what you really saw was that vision come to fruition with the Tea Party movement and then its ultimate embodiment, Donald J. Trump.
I guess what I'm hearing as well is like, the anti-immigrants were all, the anti-immigration faction of the Democrat and now shifted over to the Republican Party was always there, but maybe they weren't so vocal. Maybe they were focused on other issues. But now they have coalesced around immigration. You can't get on TV, at least not yet, and be blatantly racist and blatantly discriminatory, but it's a bit easier to do so with immigration. Might that be an explanation for what we're currently seeing?
Yes. An analogy is Ron DeSantis' use of the word woke. You can be openly racist if you don't say it.
If you call it anti-woke.
If you call it anti-woke, you don't have to say anti-black. If you say, I am for strong immigration, and you call everyone that is lawfully coming to the border to seek asylum illegal immigrants, you can say it. Somehow that's okay, and without saying what you really fear, which is the fear of the other. Whether that person is a Haitian immigrant, a Salvadoran immigrant, etc. It's code. It's dog whistle.
Thank you for articulating that, Jeremy. Before we wrap up and get to Farshad, I want to wrap up with you, Jeremy, on the politics. I want to address the elephant in the room. We're sitting in Florida, we're sitting in Orlando, and the mayor had a very pro-immigrant, very nice recorded presentation, the mayor of Orlando. We're sitting in Florida. Jeremy, you were AILA president when Governor DeSantis' anti-immigration actions and rhetoric really began to heat up. And then the Florida government enacted its blatantly discriminatory anti-immigration laws. That happened just before the AILA National Conference that we're all currently at. Why did you and AILA leadership decide to keep the conference in Florida?
Simply put, because we have over 1,200 members of AILA that live and work in Florida, and we were not going to abandon them. So that's reason number one. We're going to stand with our members, and we're not going to run away from situations just because they're challenging. Number two, you have different geographic boundaries. We are in Florida, but we're also in Orlando. Orlando is an extremely pro-immigrant area. We had the mayor that made a speech to our members yesterday. So we're in an area that is pro-immigration. But the primary reason is that it also provides us, number three, it provides us with a platform to push back. I opened my farewell remarks yesterday by saying, I am so proud and happy to be standing here in Florida, shoulder to shoulder with our chapter members, if only just to say Happy Pride Month and Happy Immigrant Heritage Month.
But so Farshad, though, and I know you talked about it a bit yesterday, AILA National went through a similar thing with the Texas conference a few years back, if I'm not mistaken, and they pulled out. They pulled out of Texas with legislation that actually, in retrospect, probably wasn't as bad as what DeSantis just passed. Why keep the conference in Florida when we pulled out of Texas under similar circumstances? What's the difference?
for the AILA chapter members in Texas, they felt we had abandoned them and the communities they serve. We should always stand with our members and the communities they serve. That is our job, and we must stand and fight together. Now, the epicenter of immigration has shifted, as I mentioned in my plenary, from Washington to the states. And as we know, the states have been trying to pass draconian legislations. One way to think about this is that if we start boycotting the places that are going to be passing anti-immigration laws, then we're going to be very limited to jurisdictions.
We can all come to see me in San Diego,
yes.
in California.
Yes, we can. And perhaps that will be at the end of it. But I think that we have to stand with the communities that we have and we serve. That's why we are here. We should always stand with the membership, with where we are geographically, to protect them, to be with them, and to fight with them in person.
I think that's a good explanation, Farshad, and I appreciate you taking the time, and Jeremy, to speak with me. Congratulations so much on your ascendancy to the presidency. I'm very happy for you and excited for you. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go as we kick off your presidency? Something positive, of course.
I'm very hopeful. From the first day that I became a part of AILA, I was completely blown away by what AILA does for us. I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that we will be fighting together in AILA and achieve many good victories.
Thank you, Farshad. Thank you, Jeremy. It's been an honor and good luck on your year. So there you have it. I'm Kevin A. Gregg, a partner with the law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, and this has been another episode of Immigration Review. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it with a friend and rate and review us. Each review helps new listeners find the show. And of course, subscribe to Immigration Review wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what we do and want to become a patron of the show, please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Immigration Review, or click on the link in the show notes. And if you're interested in an official Immigration Review CLE certificate for 5 credit hours, email me at kgreg@kktplaw.com with your full name and the episode numbers for the 10 shows you've listened to. Also, feel free to email me with questions, comments, or anything at all. And follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Immigration Review, and send us a tweet at ImReview. That's IMM Review. I'll be back next Monday for a brand new discussion. Until then, I'm Kevin A. Gregg, bringing you the Immigration Review. And to stick with you, Jeremy, before we wrap it up with Farshad, I want to address the elephant in the room. It's not an offensive commentary on either of you or myself, but it is the metaphorical elephant. That's a stupid-ass joke.